Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Jonasz. Donald Trump's controversial remark that Ukraine has no cards may have lost much of its validity with the most recent events in the Middle East, where Iranian drone attacks exposed a major vulnerability that Kyiv knows how to fix. Despite being entangled in a war with aggressive Russia, Ukraine is offering its interceptor drone expertise to the US and its allies to flip the dangerous cost discrepancy between attack and defense. But will this help Ukraine in its dealings with Trump, just as its own missile stocks are running perilously low? Joining us here today is Milan Lelich, political analyst for RBC-UKRAINE. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So Ukraine has made an offer to countries in the Middle East and is now sending experts. Do you think that this might actually change this dynamic that we're seeing following Iran's attacks on countries all around the region?
I think it will heavily depend on the amount of aid that we'll provide. As our President Zelensky said, that we're not going to send our troops, especially from the front line, for obvious reasons, because they are, in the first place, they are badly needed there. But some experts with some knowledge and, as our President said, some capabilities that they will bring with them. They will arrive in that region, but I think it really depends. Either these are, like just several men and women sharing their experience, or maybe a wider contingent of people in different countries. But nevertheless, we understand that our experience is really extremely precious, and over the course of the last year or two, we have proved it several times, in particular in some joint trainings with non-US NATO members, where we are not sort of a junior partner anymore. We are the ones who share their knowledge. And in year 2026, it is not Ukraine that asks Germany for some military instructors, but instead Bundeswehr, German army, asks Ukraine to send our instructors to train German troops. I think in the Middle East region, we will observe exactly the same, because even despite those countries, those oil monarchies of the Gulf, they are very wealthy, extremely wealthy, but still they understand that they will not be able, to use some Patriot missiles against the drones, when the Patriot missiles cost roughly like 100 times more than the drone.
That's exactly the issue, right? Let's explain, to our viewers what this is really about, because this is not just about being able to shoot down drones. It's about the relationship between the cost of the interceptor and the cost of the enemy drone or missile. And this is something where Ukraine has some unique experience gained on the battlefield. So what is it?
Yeah, exactly. I remember that maybe several years ago, maybe like 3 years ago or something, we also, from time to time, we had to use extremely expensive, as for us, for Ukrainians, these are really extremely expensive. For example, Patriot anti-ballistic missiles sometimes against the drones, which is absolutely financially unwisely, because it means that the interceptor is worth, I don't know, like 100 times more, 200 times more than that particular drone. So if there is one or two cases, then it will be okay. But if we are talking about hundreds and thousands of drones, then you have to find another solution. And we managed to find numerous solutions, in particular the drones that shoot down different drones. I think that in this particular sphere, as of now, we are #1 country in the world, because these interceptor drones are really cheap and we are able to produce them in huge numbers. And this is what we've developed over the course of last year. Even last year, like a year ago, it was more like a concept or something. But now, for example, around 70% of all the Shahed drones that attack Kyiv over the course of several last weeks, attack our energy, they are shot down by Ukrainian interceptor drones. So they have proved their efficacy. So I think that we can share both maybe some technologies and also the experience and material and everything with the Gulf monarchies. And also we have to use this as sort of a political leverage because, again, President Zelensky said that we are very much okay to help the countries that really try to repel Iran's attacks. And Iran's attack, they focus not only on military targets, but on civilian population and civilian targets as well, like the hotels. So Ukraine understands what it's all about, and Ukraine is always helpful to save lives, but we still have our own war and our own interests. And also our interests may also be influenced by what is going on there, in particular, meaning the air defense and the Patriot missiles and all the stuff that will be needed there.
That's exactly the thing, isn't it? Because
some sort of a quid pro quo. Yeah.
Patriot missiles are in short supply in general. The numbers being produced by Raytheon in the US, some people say, are not sufficient to sustain so many conflicts. Including Ukraine, including also what's happening in the Middle East right now. So these missiles are rare, they are expensive, and Ukraine needs them because the number of Russian missiles being sent against Ukraine is still considerable. So do you think that there might perhaps be some sort of trade-off, i.e. Ukraine being allocated a pool of missiles for its own air defense in exchange for freeing up the same missiles in the Middle East because they would no longer be needed to shoot down really cheap Shahed drones, because this is what Iran keeps using against countries located around it? Do you think this is a realistic expectation, perhaps?
Yeah, perhaps what you've just described is exactly the idea of our leadership, to make this sort of exchange. Just two figures for you to better understand the situation. Over the course of the first 4 days of the war in the Gulf, in Iran, the monarchies of the Gulf have spent more Patriot missiles than Ukraine have spent over the course of the whole winter, shooting down Russian tanks. So in 4 days, they have shot roughly about 800 Patriots, and we've spent around 700 Patriots over the course of the whole winter. So it means that their usage is highly ineffective, really, and it cannot go long. It cannot go on for long. So definitely something should be done, and I think that this sort of trade-off may be definitely on the table, and it's also very much, I don't know, like in US President Trump's manner, because this is a classical quid pro quo. This is a deal, like I give you this, you give me that, and something. So I think that some sort of a solution may be found. Also, given that the monarchies, the United Arab Emirates, the Saudi Arabia, the Qatar, and other countries in the region, they are really suffering from that attack. Their business climate is getting worse and worse. They have a lot of troubles with oil and gas and delivering it to the world market. And on the other hand, they have extremely they have really perfect relationships with the White House, with the current US administration. So it means that if Donald Trump thinks that Ukraine has no card, maybe he sincerely may think so, that those guys will be able to explain to him that this is not the case anymore. Ukraine is not cardless. Ukraine really does have cards, and moreover, Ukraine has very unique cards that no other country in the world, even the US, have.
And a practical question, because we're talking about these interceptor drones, right? How long do you think would it take to implement, say, a manufacturing line for drones like that in the Middle East, given that the technology is there, so you would no longer need any sort of prototype testing? You pretty much transfer the technology into a wealthy nation like Saudi Arabia, for example. Because these drones are needed right now. Do you think that if the manufacturing line would not be open until a few months later, which could be a bit late given the current dynamics of the conflict. Could Ukraine perhaps be able to spare a limited amount of these drones for the time being, pending the opening of such production lines? Do you think that the response could be positive if this is what Ukraine's allies are actually, or might be asking for in the current situation?
I think it also heavily depends on how long this Operation Epic Fury will go on, because as of now, I think no single person in the world knows it. It may really end up in 4 days or 5 days, or it may last for another 4 or 5 months as well, because we have no real clear answers from Trump himself, from his administration. So, but I think it's not only about the interceptor drones themselves, but also about sharing absolutely unique experience, how to locate those drones, or some some tactical hints that no country in the world has, but Ukraine does. So as for sharing what we have, I'm not that big a military expert. If we may have theoretically, we may have the overproduction of certain types of interceptor drones. Perhaps, I'm not sure in that, but this may be the case. So maybe if we have some sort of an overproduction, even more than we need on our own to shoot down the Russian drones, that maybe we will be able, as for some, like test samples or something to show their efficacy on the battlefield that we can share, maybe they're already there or underway. Who knows? This is highly classified information. Maybe we'll get to know soon. But anyway, Ukraine's involvement into protection of the Gulf monarchies in this or that form, different forms may take place. It is very essential, and it's definitely a leverage. It's a window of opportunity for us to show that this is not 2025 or even whatever, not 2022. We do have a lot of cards, no matter what President Trump thinks of it.
A general question, are you shocked that militaries all around the world seem to have overlooked this revolution? I mean, like you said, it's no longer 2022, yet many militaries are actually acting as if it is, and only now realizing that waves of enemy drones could be a risk they might be unprepared for.
There is an old saying that the generals, they always prepare for the wars of the past. This has always been the case, but now as the technology is developing really insanely quickly, even quicker than, I don't know, like 20 or 40 years ago, with all the development of the artificial intelligence technologies, I think it has a lot to do with the bureaucracy of the peacetime. When you don't have any active war, when the threats do not seem, like absolutely imminent, you have the opportunity to spend a lot of time in creating different programs for 15 or 20 years, having multiple summits and meeting and discussing this or that. But if you have an active war happening here and now, you have to adjust, to adapt really in no time. This is what we've done here in Ukraine. So I'm not surprised that we are prepared to everything what happens in the world. I mean that Russia is also producing more and more sophisticated drones and missiles and everything. So we have to adjust our defensive means. I'm not shocked that even like the NATO guys, the people in Europe, they're not as technologically prepared because I expected it to happen. So yes, this is an extremely big mistake, because since day one, okay, if not since 2014, then since the 24th of February 2022, when Russia started its full-scale invasion, it should be #1 issue for all numerous NATO generals all over the continent. For example, at least in Europe, they had to think what is going on and what will happen in a year, to predict what technologies may emerge in a year or two, and to start preparing, training their troops and so on.
And then we have to pack our conversation there, but this is definitely a lesson for other countries to learn. Hopefully they will be able to learn it quickly enough. Milan Lelich was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight. You're watching TVP World. Please do stay with us.